All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION Pulse. The nations across the world want to show their power, and what better way to do that than nuclear weapons, which happen to be the ultimate guarantee of defense of a nation. It is a deterrent against any and all potential adversaries. But as the saying goes, with great power comes great responsibility. In the year 2022, the number of operational atomic warheads has increased globally. With the rise in the number of operational atomic warheads, it has also led to the risk of a major catastrophe between the leading world nuclear powers. Remember Hiroshima and the Nagasaki bombing.
Beneath that sinister pall of smoke, the world's most destructive force has been unleashed. With what results?
The two atomic bombs had been dropped on Japan back in 1945 by the United States of America, which happens to be the only nation in the world, in world history, to have dropped nuclear bombs on a nation. Hundreds of thousands of people had been killed and maimed, and their effects are still being felt even to this day. According to the report, the 9 official and unofficial nuclear powers at this moment hold at least 9,600 ready-to-use nuclear warheads as of 2023. Now, this is up by more than 120 nuclear warheads from the previous year, according to the Nuclear Weapons Ban Monitor that is published by the NGO Norwegian People's Aid. These weapons have a collective destructive power which is several thousand times more than the bombs that were dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, this damning report has come at a time when Belarus's defense ministry has released a video that shows off a training exercise involving an air defense unit that is armed with Russian-supplied Tor M2K missile launchers. And according to the Belarusian and Russian defense and industry sources, this system is capable of bringing down a variety of enemy targets, including cruise missiles, glide bombs, drones, and aircraft. The delivery of the updated Tor M2K complexes to Belarus was reported back in December, with a new batch being supplied in January. And this military drill has come just days after the Russian President Vladimir Putin had unveiled plans to station Russian tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus. Now, Putin claims that it was in response to an announcement by the United Kingdom that it will be handing over ammunition with depleted uranium to the Ukrainian forces. Moreover, the Russian president has also warned that Moscow will be forced to react if the United Kingdom provides Ukraine with what are known as armor-piercing tank ammunition that contain depleted uranium. On the other hand, the United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense has in fact dismissed Vladimir Putin's warning. It claims that armor-piercing shells have been standard equipment for decades and were nothing to do with nuclear weapons or capabilities. Now, Britain has also accused Russia of deliberate misinformation for describing ammunition as weapons with a nuclear component. Now, Russia is not the only nation which, of course, is playing the game of nuclear chess. There is, of course, the hermit nation of North Korea. Now, Pyongyang has revealed small nuclear warheads which it says can be fitted onto short-range missiles. The North Koreans also have long claimed that it has tactical nuclear weapons that are capable of hitting targets in South Korea. Now, Pyongyang has spent the past fortnight firing a barrage of what it says are nuclear-capable weapons while simulating nuclear attacks on Seoul. North Korea has further said that it is punishing the United States and South Korea for holding their largest military drills in years near the Korean peninsula. Now, remember, the Allies have been practicing as to how to defeat the North Koreans in the event of an attack. And this is not a scenario that North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un relishes. He's been categorical in stating that the military drills by the United States and South Korea are essentially a rehearsal for a ground invasion of North Korea. And last but not the least, there are the Iranians, Iran and Saudi Arabia, which recently decided to restore their diplomatic ties. According to sources, they've agreed on several security issues, including Riyadh's conditional support for Tehran's nuclear program and ending the war in Yemen. Now, Iran, which has consistently insisted that its nuclear power is being developed for peaceful electricity generation purposes and is not aimed at making nuclear weapons as feared by other nations. However, it is now being said that Saudi Arabia will politically support the restoration of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, referring to the 2015 agreement under which Iran had curbed its nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief from the United States and 6 other world powers. All right, now to give us more insights in terms of what all of this, of course, means, we're being joined by Peter Kuznick, who's a professor of history and director of the Nuclear Studies Institute at the American University. Professor, thank you very much indeed for taking time out and speaking to us here in WION. I want you to first, comment on this rather disturbing report that has now come forth, which states that in the year 2022, the global nuclear arsenal has in fact gone up, especially that of the Russians and the Chinese. What do you make of this?
I think you gave a very comprehensive rundown of what's going on, and it's very troubling.
Mm-hmm.
The world would like to see the elimination of nuclear weapons, but we're going in the wrong direction. The Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist has been publishing its doomsday clock since 1947. This is the closest we've ever been to Armageddon, to midnight.
Right.
It's now at 90 seconds before midnight. It's the closest it's ever been. And most experts believe, and I do also, that this is the closest we've been to nuclear war since the Cuban Missile Crisis 61 years ago.
Absolutely.
And it's getting more dangerous, not less dangerous. The Ukraine situation is very, very troubling, but there are a lot of hotspots around the world right now that are very unstable. You mentioned the Korean Peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
The United States and South Korea are conducting massive war games, and the North Koreans are responding with missile tests at record rates and with developing new, smaller nuclear warheads that are more usable. But all 9 nuclear powers are modernizing their nuclear arsenals to make them more efficient and more lethal. So as a species, we're inflicted with this kind of insanity, this mass compulsion towards self-destruction. It's very, very troubling to watch.
Absolutely indeed. Now, Professor, I also want you to weigh in on the recent developments in the Ukraine war, where according to reports, Britain has said that it will be sending what are known as depleted uranium artillery shells along with its tanks. Now, the Russians say that this is a very, very destructive thing to do because this is clearly a new kind of a weapon that would be used in the Ukraine war. Now, in the past, depleted uranium has been used in Iraq and also in Kosovo. The Brits are insisting that this is not a nuclear weapon, but according to the IAEA, it says that depleted uranium is still radioactive. And for the people who live in areas where this kind of a weapon has been used, there are reports that children who are born there are born with birth defects. What is your take on this?
I think that's true. I've seen the effects of the use of these weapons in Iraq. And I've seen the photos of the children born with horrific birth defects. So these are radioactive materials that are in these weapons. They're right to say this is not the same thing as a nuclear weapon, not the same thing as even a dirty bomb, but it is a troubling development and it is a military escalation. So we're on this path of increasing weapon systems being sent and used and deployed, creating more and more of a danger of escalation to nuclear war. World War III is a real possibility, and people need to take it seriously. I was glad to see China call for a ceasefire. The Ukrainians and the Americans say, we don't want a ceasefire because that will freeze the Russian military gains on the battlefield in place. But the world needs to see a ceasefire, and we need diplomacy and negotiations. Ukraine is the immediate spearhead of this kind of danger. But again, there are a lot of other situations that could easily develop into this.
Absolutely indeed, Professor Kuznick. Thank you very much indeed, sir, for joining us and getting us all those insights there.